Okay, so let's see. I know I needed a third clip for this. Trying to remember what exactly I wanted to finish up. Okay, so let's. Okay. Oh, I don't know. I was talking about people I studied with and their influences. So first was Jerry Coker, who, if there's anybody that Jerry Coker really talked about, it was Claire Fisher. And Claire Fisher was not well recorded, and very hard to find recordings of his piano playing in America. I had one, and it's probably worth like $50. It's so hard to find, but like I said, I haven't kept track of my music collection, and there's been like who knows where that CD is now. I have no idea. And Claire Fisher was a Latino pianist, although Claire Fisher was really interested in I mean, he played a lot of bossa nova, but he was really interested in the Great American Songbook. He played a lot of like jazz standards, other than even though he was playing in Latin style. Very accomplished pianist and musician, and Jerry Coker talked about him constantly. Jerry Coker was actually an alto sax player, but for whatever reason, like when he wanted to explain something to you, Claire Fisher came out of the bag. And I'm not making fun of Jerry Coker. I mean, Jerry Coker was one of those people that, like, you know, meeting him and studying with him changed my life. And he was very, very encouraging. I was not the best piano player in the world when I began studying with him. Very encouraging. I can remember. You know, I don't know. It was an amazing experience working with him. The next guy I worked with was the guy, and I'm not going to name his name because he lives in Dayton, and if you're from Dayton, you probably know what I'm talking about. But he played with Mel Torme Jazz Orchestra, and like I said, like his view of jazz was so different than mine. Like, and like I would play a tune for him, and he would say, "Look, you're putting the comp in the wrong place." Well, come to find out, it wasn't that I had put the comp in the wrong place, but I had put the comp in a place where you might find it in Count Basie's orchestra rather than Mel Torme's orchestra. So that was an interesting experience. He was really fussy about technique, and thank God I worked with him because I had the worst technique, and my technique over the past 2 or 3 years after I worked with him and decided to quit has gotten miles better, and I cannot thank that guy enough. When you play efficiently on it, it doesn't matter what instrument it is. If you play efficiently, I mean, you know, you see like on guitar, people do the stupidest bullshit. Like they move their fingers up and down the frets every time they play a note. Don't do that shit. Be efficient. You can hurt yourself playing badly and inefficiently. You can hurt your hands and your wrists. It's not all that uncommon for people who play music professionally to have carpal tunnel surgery and all sorts of shit. And if you play efficiently and with good technique, you will not have those problems. Well, also, don't overplay, and when you don't play till it hurts. But I mean, really, like, other than just common sense, don't fuck yourself up. Like, playing efficiently and playing with good technique will save your ass. And that's what I learned from that guy. I only had 2 lessons with him, but there's a guy named Hank Marr from Columbus. Hank Marr was the first person that ever explained to me the enormity of the task of becoming a good jazz piano player. I sat down with him and I said, "Look, I can play this one-handed voicing." And I showed him the song I was playing, whatever it was. But how do I play this with 2 hands? Because it feels kind of gay, or whatever you want to. I mean, you know, we talked about gay, but I mean, it feels kind of lame to play a 1-chord voicing and just have your right hand doing nothing. So I asked him, "What do I do?" He said, "Well, well, you have to arrange the song. So essentially, what he's saying it now, and then as we worked it out, what it turns out is not only did I have to arrange the song, but I had to arrange the song with, and this is what's so great about Hank Marr, with proper counterpoint. And so not only, as a jazz musician, not only was I going to utilize, these tone colors and stuff that you don't hear very often in classical music, and this swing feel, which I'm still working on to this day, probably will be for the rest of my life. I don't know if I'll ever get more into jazz or less into jazz, but not only was I going to do that, I was also going to play with classical counterpoint. And not only that, I was going to learn, and Jerry Coker's when he told me this, it's about 200 songs you need to know to be a competent jazz player, to be somebody who is going to record on major recordings and things like that. I mean, and if you go to New York City and they call some obscure Gershwin tune and you don't know it, you're going to learn the meaning of humiliation. So they'll call it in some fucked up key, and you better know it. It's weird. I mean, the classic is Cherokee in B. That's the one that if they call Cherokee in B, they're fucking with you. And if you can play it, they'll never do it again. But anyway, so anyway, so that was Hank Marr really impressed on me that don't play bullshit. When you play a jazz song, be as rigorous about it as if you would compose it yourself, or as if you were arranging it for a band. As if you were writing it out, and you had to memorize it all. And that was the moment when I knew I wasn't going to play jazz professionally, because I knew it was going to take me 20 years to figure that amount of material out. And so in the meantime, I had a lot of, what's ended up being data entry and word processing and stuff over the years. So, most of the study with that was pretty influential on me. I'm trying to think if there's anything else really. I think those were the big ones. And I think what I found out, working with those three people, Hank Marr is Hank, he's another one. It's like talking about the Clash. Hank Marr came from this poor neighborhood in Columbus. He's never moved out of Columbus. He's stayed there his entire life. He has a Hammond B3 organ that's worth probably $1 million that he transports via Ryder truck to every gig, which, by the way, is very expensive to do. He doesn't travel very extensively because he won't play in anything else. And those Hammond B3s are worth a fortune. But what I'm trying to say is Hank Marr is a consummate musician. He does not play bullshit, and he is like Joey. What's that guy's name? Joey DeFrancesco, I think. He plays total bullshit compared to Hank Marr. Hank Marr could just kick that guy's ass, no problem. And Hank Marr is, I think, probably 70 years old, maybe even 80. And nobody knows who he is. And he can play the shit out of that organ. And he plays pedals, and he doesn't just play with the front of his feet either. He plays front and bottom. He plays heels and toes. And you don't need a bass player when you're playing with Hank. It's pretty amazing.